Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'd like to express my gratitude for the extraordinary privilege of being honored by the Beta Gamma Sigma HKU chapter. Thank you so much. So, in racking my mind and heart for what to say today, I asked myself what I wish I had known when I graduated from Cambridge in 1987 and from Oxford in 1989. Now, I loved my time at university, and in fact, I am tempted to tell you, graduates, today, that you have just spent the best years of your lives. But my purpose to come here is to celebrate with you, not to depress you. So, in the time that I have today, I would like to try and do three things. One, I'll give you a very quick outline again of my career journey because it is relevant to the rest of the story. Secondly, I'd like to spend a bit of time talking about opportunities and challenges for women. And lastly, I'm going to attempt to give you some tips for professional success and personal fulfillment. So given my work with the Women's Foundation, some of my remarks today will be a little bit more focused on women, and I hope the men in the audience will find my remarks as relevant. Certainly what we are seeing is an increasing recognition that greater gender diversity is good for business, politics, academia, and other sectors. So it is actually in everyone's interest to ensure that women are participating fully in society. So first, a very quick bit of self-introduction. I was born and brought up actually in Malaysia. My parents sent me to a UK boarding school, an all-girls boarding school, when I was 12. And I went on to read law at Cambridge, Oxford, and my MBA is from IMD in Lausanne. So I have, as you heard from the highlights from Professor Chang, had a very varied career, working with Linklaters as a corporate finance lawyer. They were the ones who posted me from the city of London to Hong Kong. I then worked for Disney's TV division before moving to a first-generation .com company, Asia Content, which IPO'd on NASDAQ. In 2003, I joined the FT, the Financial Times, as their managing director for Asia. My last corporate role was as co-head of Christie's, the auction house in the region. Then in 2009, after 20 plus years as a corporate slave, I stepped off the corporate ladder, and after a year-long sabbatical, I became CEO of the Women's Foundation. So I moved into the non-profit sphere, and I have been privileged to lead the foundation for the last 6 years. Now, work has always been very important to me, but now that I have 2 daughters, or cheeky monkeys, aged 8 and 11, work is less important relatively than it was in my 20s and 30s. And I can tell you that it is very frightening how quickly the gap passes between diapers and diplomas. But I do know now that life is about a lot more than just climbing that corporate ladder and professional success. Now, I loved the years that I spent in the corporate world, but I have a real sense of belonging in the NGO space. And I feel blessed to be at my stage in life, to be almost 50, and to wake up every day feeling excited and energized about my day ahead, and to be so personally and wholly engaged in the work that we do to empower women and girls. At the Women's Foundation, we aspire to conduct groundbreaking research. We aspire to run innovative and impactful community programs, and we engage in education and advocacy in the pursuit of 3 main goals: challenging gender stereotypes, empowering women in poverty, and promoting female leadership. And from our research, we know that despite advances in recent times, despite the fact that women are now outnumbering men when it comes to graduates, women remain underrepresented in leadership positions across industry sectors and professions. Now, some of the main barriers that women face include complacency. Women make up just 10% of the total director pool of Hong Kong listed companies. All 21 judges in Hong Kong's Court of Final Appeal are men. But despite this kind of statistical evidence, women are still underrepresented in many fields. And part of the reason for this is complacency, the popular view that the battle of the sexes is over, there are so many women in the workforce. Women are the ones choosing to put their family before their career, so don't make any more fuss. But what this denies is the obvious truth that although a lot of progress has been made over the last couple of generations to promote women's equality, there's still much more to do. Secondly, women do continue to encounter persistent and ingrained prejudice. Men and women continue to underestimate women's capabilities, to silence their voices, and to judge the ones who become successful far more harshly than they judge successful men. Consider the group of MBA students, it's a famous case study, who they were given an otherwise identical case study, and the only change was that in one case study, the chief executive was called Jane, and the other case study, the chief executive was called John. Guess what? The results were very, very different, because all of the MBA students, whether they were men or female, judged Jane much more harshly than John. So what explains this? Well, the answer seems to be enduring gender stereotypes about men and women and leadership aptitude, and this kind of stereotyping that holds women back. The third barrier is undoubtedly true, that women do hold ourselves back. Studies show that men are much better at negotiating for pay, while women find it difficult to ask for more money or to be promoted. In addition, men apply for jobs when they meet just maybe 60% of the stated requirements, whereas women wait until they meet 150% of the requirements. Research also shows that men volunteer for new positions and promotions, whereas women wait to be asked. And finally, we come to family demands. Now, juggling work and children is difficult, with many women feeling they have to choose between their children and their careers. Men somehow don't feel that same guilt about networking after hours and talking about golf. Studies also show that women who don't yet have children start to lean back. They shift to roles of more predictability and less travel after they get married, but before they have children, in anticipation that the time will come when they have to focus on raising that family. And Sheryl Sandberg, in her book Lean In, encourages young women to be more ambitious, to leap at opportunities, particularly before they have children. So where do we go from here? Well, the good news is that most countries and most companies now recognize that if you ignore half your talent pool, that isn't a very smart idea. And as a result, more and more organizations are introducing unconscious bias programs, insisting on women being on short lists for job openings, promoting more women into frontline roles, and offering flexible working hours and that ability to work from home. And one thing that we know at the Women's Foundation is that we won't have greater equality in the workplace until we have greater equality at home, which is where all you guys come in. Now, a recent US survey found that only 9% of dual earner households managed equal sharing of childcare and household responsibilities. Full-time working mums do 30% more housework and 40% more childcare than their working husbands. Basically, I think we need to become a society that celebrates and supports both men and women as earners and carers, and prepares boys and girls for a future shared role in caring for children. But childcare aside, there are other reasons besides having children for thinking about a work life that has periodic breaks, particularly as life expectancies lengthen. Based on a reasonable extrapolation of trends around medical research linked to preventative as well as restorative healthcare, anyone living in the first world today under the age of 20 or around the age of 20 has a 90% chance of reaching and exceeding the age of 100. Given this is the case, I think all of you should celebrate the likelihood that you will very likely have more than one career with breaks in between, and not fear this. You should be looking positively at that future and the freedom that you will have to step off the career ladder for a while. Maybe it's to raise children, maybe it's to care for an aging parent, re-glue a marriage, go back to university, try a new career, travel, or write a book, or in Philip's case, 9 books. In closing, here are 7 things which helped me on my own voyage of professional and personal development. First, be resilient. When disappointment hits, and it will, you have to face it, deal with it, and get beyond it. Turn your wounds into wisdom. Failing at things, as I have, has taught me things about myself that I would have learnt no other way. You don't truly know yourself or who your friends are until both have been tested by adversity. So take responsibility equally for your successes and your failures. Enjoy the former and learn from the latter. Now, if others helped you to be successful, acknowledge them and thank them. If others were involved in or contributed to your disappointments, find a way to encourage them, to get them on side so that you can be successful next time with their help. Secondly, foster good relationships and interests outside of your workplace. Effective networking and maintaining good professional and social connections is obviously critical to career success. But having interests and friends outside of work will also help you maintain perspective in difficult times at work and provide a source of advice and support. Thirdly, always take pains to make a good first impression. It takes just 7 seconds for you to form an impression of someone upon meeting them. So remember that rule also applies to people who are meeting you. Basically, first impressions are like ink stains. They persist and take a long time to fade. Fourthly, closely related to this, nowadays you need good presentation skills to be a leader. And practice, I think, makes perfect. Seek out opportunities to hear inspiring speakers and to learn from them. And in addition, this is something that I think women in particular need to work on. You have to practice interrupting and make sure that you get those points you have across. Fifth, remember that there is a difference between being busy and being strategic. Sixth, especially given how complex the world is today, we all have to make decisions based on imperfect information and in not enough time. And it is easy to get paralyzed with fear that you will make the wrong decision. And the only way that I have found to get through this is to have a clear sense of self and personal values, by which I mean an authentic, deeply held set of beliefs about how to behave, how to treat others, how to do business. And that these are the principles that you will abide by, which are bigger than the daily decisions that you have to make. Finally, remember to laugh. It shows liveliness of spirit, it shows intelligence, and it helps to make a bad day better. A good sense of humor makes you likable, especially to yourself. 100 years, which is what you're all going to live, is a really long time to be unhappy. So be happy. At the end of the day, I would urge you to hold the highest and grandest vision for yourself, because you believe what you become. You become what you believe. We live in a highly complex world. It's beset by challenges, some of which are ancient and familiar, and others which didn't exist even a year or so ago. Poverty, growing inequality around the globe, uncertainty in the financial markets, political, gender, ethnic, and religious strife that continues to tear communities apart, human rights abuses at the hands of governments and government officials, spiraling food prices, and large-scale environmental degradation. I know it isn't easy to be a young millennial facing the immense pressure to adapt and succeed in an ever-changing world, to figure out how to exercise your rights and your responsibilities, and to search for that meaning in life. I believe that with the education you have received, you have a duty to shine, not just to achieve your full potential, but also to find ways to help others less fortunate than yourselves to let their light also shine. Remember, we are all human and mortal, even if you have 100 years to go. What divides and distinguishes us is how we make use of the time and the opportunities that we have. There is so much to be done, and the world desperately needs the intelligence and courage of young men and women like you. So go on and surprise yourself and the rest of us with all that you managed to achieve. Congratulations again, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.